And we're live with Entrepreneur's Handbook. Today we have with us Ali Tajskandar, who's the CEO and founder of Wishpond. They're an all-in-one marketing platform for small businesses. Ali's grown the company significantly since founding it in 2009, and they've used acquisitions along the way to grow to the state they are in today. Ali's chosen to talk today about acquisitions and how you can use it to scale your company faster. Ali, can you tell us why acquisitions are so important to you?
Yeah, for sure. First of all, thank you very much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. We started back in 2009, and the business obviously has had some iterations and pivots along the way. But December of 2020 was when we went public on TSX Venture Exchange in Canada, and our revenue when we went public was $7.9 million. So let's say $8 million, and all of that was through growth, organic growth, no acquisitions, building the product over 10 years, marketing and all of those things. And then from then to now, about 2.5 years later, we've grown to like 22, 23 million revenue run rate, like 3 times larger. And this, we're still growing at that, about 30% organic growth yearly. But the fact that we grew 3 times in 2.5 years was because we did acquisitions. And the acquisitions have been very important for us because not only did they give us revenue growth, but they made our product suite a lot stronger, right? We've made 6 acquisitions, and before that, we're an all-in-one marketing platform for small businesses. But before that, we didn't have referral marketing components. We didn't have text message marketing. We didn't have outbound sales, outreach campaigns. We didn't have a lot of these components that are actually quite critical in the marketing funnel. And for us to have worked on developing them would have taken a lot of time, and they would have probably been quite thin. And they, for example, let's say Viralus, one of the acquisitions we made is referral marketing. They've been at it for more than 10 years. It's a well-known name. They work with a lot of really important and well-known brands. They've ironed out all the kinks. And when we acquire them, obviously now we can leapfrog competition who's trying to build those functionalities and bring that to market faster. So that's the reason that it does matter if you do it right and if you're looking at it the right way and you don't overpay.
Yeah, and it's interesting there as well. You mentioned about the IPO too, because obviously very impressive, and it's like really great that you've got to that stage. And you chose to do that rather than take on like venture capital funding or something like that too. Could you talk about like why you chose to IPO when you did?
It's a question I get a lot, actually. I think there's nothing wrong with any of those paths, but in our case, the reason that I thought IPO, or in our case, really reverse takeover in Canada, makes more sense is that we did want to grow through acquisitions. And if you want to grow through acquisitions, generally VCs don't give you money to go and make acquisitions. And as a private company, pretty much everything you do has to be all cash, right? Because your stock is not liquid. As a public company, you can say, well, I'm going to pay part of it with stock, and the stock you can go and sell it if you want, right? So that allows you to use your stock as currency and grow faster. So acquisitions are easier to accomplish as a public company than a private company.
Interestingly there as well, right? So with that first acquisition, you obviously IPO'd so you can make acquisitions easier. Did you have somebody in mind when you decided you want to make acquisitions?
No, not really. No, we knew that was the strategy that we wanted to follow, and we knew that there are a lot of targets, but we didn't have anyone lined up until heading into the IPO. Obviously, a few months ahead of that, we started looking and we started lining up. Our first 2 acquisitions, we made them in, I forget the dates, but very shortly after going public, because we had already thought about it, and we had some, that we were kind of like, okay, these could be good.
When you picked those like first couple companies, right? What made them stand out? Why was it those 2 in particular? Because I guess when you're making your first acquisition, it's probably quite a scary thing to do, right? Because you just IPO'd. What about if you make the first acquisition you do like flops, and then you've made a bad decision?
And very publicly so.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Acquisitions are scary for sure, and going public is scary. All of those things are. The reason we picked those acquisitions particular, actually, in fact, all of our acquisitions, we said, listen, we need to have margin of safety for any of these acquisitions because a lot of things can go wrong. And we want to make it so that a few things can go wrong and we're still okay, right? So let me give you an idea. If at that point our revenue was 8 million and we made an acquisition that was like 6 million revenue, if that 6 million flopped and became like 2 million, that would completely sink us, right? It would be too large for us to stomach at that point. So size was relative to us was important. So that's one margin of safety. The other margin of safety is that we said we don't want to make acquisitions of just technology companies. We want to make acquisitions of, by the way, there's a play there and we can talk about that. But in our case, we said we want revenue generating companies and we want profitable companies. And we want them to all be, serving the same audience as us, and we don't want to overpay. So we paid anywhere from 1.1 time multiple of sales to 2.9 times, even during the crazy days of 2021, right? And a lot of people would at that point say, no, 5 to 10 times is more the norm and all that. Fair enough, but if we did that, we wouldn't have a margin of safety if something went wrong. And a lot of times things go wrong, right? You have to bet on that. That was one part of it. The other part that I think really helped us was we said, like, how do you make sure you make the right hiring decision? To me, the best indicator that you make the right hiring decision is how many people you interview, right? How many people do you have in your pipeline? It's the same for acquisitions. If you find one opportunity and you execute on that, and that's the only one you ever, looked at, chance of going wrong is quite high. So we said we want to have this in our control. So similar to our sales methodology and outreach, we created the pipeline, found all the companies that could be target for us, sending them emails, getting them on calls, like the whole CRM and methodology. We I think we talked to like 400 companies before making the first 4 acquisitions, and that's where you can actually say, okay, I want several factors and don't have to compromise, and that was important to us.
It would be interesting to see like the companies that were on the border zone, right? So let's say you acquired 4 of those 400, the ones that were the 5th to the 10th companies right on your list. What was it that made them just not quite right? Because obviously there's easy red flags, right? But what are the smaller ones which may be more nuanced that some people might miss?
Very good question. I'm trying to remember. The biggest one is that the expectations don't align. And it's one that is easy to overlook. In our case, as a public company, sometimes it's easier. If we were trading at 5 time multiple of sales, we couldn't pay more than 5 times. It wouldn't be an accretive acquisition, right? Shareholders would say, "Why did you do that? Like that wasn't a good trade for us." But that a lot of times is the first thing. The second thing is looking at the financials of the company. If the company is really struggling and really in the negative and all that, and for us to say we're gonna be turnaround artists and we're gonna come in and do a lot better than them, it a lot of times doesn't actually go well. So that's one that we're like, no, we actually want the company to do well. And the other one is, you have to think whether the original founders and owners are gonna want to come on board or not, and do you want them on board or not, right? I'll give you one interesting M&A conversation we had. This was not the norm, but it was interesting. We show up to this M&A call, and the founder is there, a few other people, VC related and all that are there as well. I thought we are just doing discovery, and then the first thing that the person says is, "Tell me why, you convince me why we should work with you." I'm like, okay, like right off the bat, a little bit hostile, and throughout the conversation that was a dynamic, and then later I found that he didn't want to do it; he was being forced, right? And that is a huge red flag too, right? Like if the founder is not willing and is not ready for it, just walk away. Like a lot of things can go wrong.
Let's say the founder does want to sell, right? So some people listening right now, maybe they're building a company and they hope to get acquired someday. what are the things that they should be doing to make it easier for you? What were some of the things that maybe then you turn somebody down? So let's say they were really enthusiastic, but they just didn't have something quite up to scratch. Even if the financial was good, what were the other red flags you looked out for?
Financials need to be good. Product needs to be good. I think, to be honest with you, what I see a lot of times go wrong is the financials, though. Like, there are a lot of companies that their product is interesting and all that, but financials just don't add up, and it's very negative. And I see some founders where they're trying to get the product right, but they're not really good at marketing and sales, and that's okay. A lot of times, that's the reason that actually there's an acquisition opportunity for us, but it needs to be enough to be interesting and kind of, you know, have passed the test of time and, all of that, to say, okay, this can work for us. Other things obviously are presence and marketing, quality of the product, reviews, those kind of things. Not having overly complicated things that would scale. And one of the questions that I ask myself is, if this founder does not continue, and that's an important one actually, if this founder does not continue because they want to start something new, a lot of times that's actually the reason that there is an opportunity for us. Some of the acquisitions we made, the founders wanted to get into building startups related to crypto, and whether that worked out well or not, with the crypto innovations, I don't want to comment on that. But that was the reason. So we knew that we couldn't count on the founders after the acquisition. So then that means that the red flag would have been if the company would not survive unless they're there all the time, right? So you want, as much as possible, you want companies where they don't depend on the founder like that. The founder is there, is helpful, but the business is like, for example, at some point we thought about acquiring marketing agencies, and then what we found was that it's hairy for a lot of reasons. One of the primary reasons is that revenue is not as sticky and all that, but a lot of them are dependent on the owner. The relationships are tied to the owner. The owner goes, everything disappears, and you don't want that kind of business. You want it to be a business, not a consulting.
Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the episode so far. If you want to find some of the best lessons from season 1 of this podcast, then you can download our free ebook using the link in the show notes. You'll also get updates multiple times a week from our editors here at Entrepreneur's Handbook, all aimed at helping you become a better entrepreneur and helping you to grow and scale your business. Let's get back to the show. I think what's interesting, something you said earlier too about is humility, right? Of where sometimes I think a lot of people can think, oh, I can do a better job than them, right? And
oh man, yeah, we made that mistake, by the way.
But like you said, you had that humility to say, if the business isn't doing well, we're not magicians, right? We can't necessarily save it. It needs to be doing well by itself first. And then it's easier for you to use different things that work out together with your experience and your other things in your portfolio. Was there anything almost that surprised you in the positive way, where you acquired a company and it worked out even better than you thought it would? And what were the reasons why it worked out even better?
There are a few cases. One, the negative case I'll talk about, and then I'll talk about the positive case. The negative case, we saw actually, that teaches you humility as well. Is that it's easy for us to say, we're bigger than the company we're acquiring, we're better at marketing and sales and this and that. And, in a couple of cases, we were too quick to make changes to them, to try to do better. And then that actually completely hurt them. And then we were like, oh shit, revenue is going down, this is going down. And there's a lot of things that make a business work that if you don't truly understand and you haven't been in it for a while, you're going to get wrong. And then we learned, we have to patiently study it, let it run kind of the way it was running, add things to it as opposed to changing things, and not let it not let ourselves get carried away. On the positive side of it, for example, one of the acquisitions we made was Persist IQ, company, Y Combinator company, Silicon Valley, and amazing company. If you're familiar with Sales Loft and Outreach and those kind of outreach campaign companies, similar space, been in that space for a while. I've worked with a lot of different brands, and we just got lucky that the original founders created a spin-off and raise money for that through VC, and when we saw that there's an opportunity, I reached out to the one of the founders, and we were able to do a deal, and that one worked a lot better than we expected. And I think in that case, we actually put one of our leaders as the general manager, so he knew the playbook within Wishpond, and he could immediately go and do the same things that helped us scale there, and it worked quite well, and he did a fantastic job of that. So it actually grew even faster than it was growing before the acquisition by a large margin.
You mentioned there a playbook that Wishpond has as well. Now when you're looking at more acquisitions in the future potentially, do you think there's a method which you use which makes it a lot easier that you wish you had for those first two as well?
For sure, for sure. For example, sales playbook, that's one of them. Obviously, there's technology integration. There's a lot of different things, but the sales playbook in our case of building these specific packages of certain size, setting up the SDR side, the email campaigns, the SDR side, the account executives, the incentives, and rolling that out is something that we've seen work quite well in the case of Wishpond and Persist IQ and Brax ad management company that we acquired. And then at some point, the general manager of Brax, who was our VP sales and marketing before, I asked him, his name is Kevin Ho, awesome guy. I said, Kevin, can you actually write this down? Because we need the playbook. We don't want the next general manager of a company that we acquire to have to try to figure it out from scratch. We want to, as much as possible, give them a good chance of doing this successfully and not spin the wheels. That has been very helpful.
Are you continuing to look at further acquisitions, or how do you know when's the right time to look at more versus when's the time to consolidate?
Well, sometimes it's easy. Right now our cash position is good for carrying operations. We're cash flow positive now, but it's not so good that we can freely go and make acquisitions. And the stock market and capital markets right now are a little bit closed, so it wouldn't make sense for us to go raise money to do more acquisitions. So right now we're kind of forced to head down, focus on consolidation, focus on getting the most out of them. And when the stock market is better, the value of our stock is better, then we can make we can raise money and do acquisitions. Obviously, right now we can raise debt to do acquisition, but you would have to be even that much more certain of the outcomes. But if you're if you're an entrepreneur just getting started or earlier days, I think one of the things that is quite interesting is that most people don't think of acquisitions as a viable option for them. It's the kind of thing that you think, hundreds of millions of dollars acquisitions and all that. And the reality is that these days there are a lot of small opportunities available. For example, MicroAcquire is a really good marketplace. There's a few of them, but MicroAcquire does a good job. And there are companies that are as small as, pre-revenue, some early revenue. You can acquire them for tens of thousands of dollars, some of them. And if, especially if you're starting and you're like, well, how do I not spend 5-10 years that it has taken for the product to mature and go and inherit an existing product and some customer attraction and then build on top of that or add that to more product? I would say, yeah, look at MicroAcquire, look at some of those things. Some of them are a lot more affordable than you might imagine, and they could help save you several years for sure.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing because certainly some people listening right now who maybe they worked at one of the big companies, whether Meta or Google, and they've got some capital there. And like you said, they could build something from scratch, work on a side hustle for 3 years on top of their job, or they could use that capital they have and buy a product and massively increase their ability to get to market and to move on that as well. And you said that you didn't start the acquisitions until later on in your journey. Did you ever wish that maybe you did some of those micro acquisitions earlier on?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, sometimes I do think that. So let me put it this way: I have no plan to get out of Wishpond. With that disclaimer, if I do the mental exercise of, well, let's say Wishpond exits and I want to start something new, I think in that case, I think, yeah, doing acquisitions earlier would make sense because again, a lot of times that product maturity and all that takes a long time. And if I can buy that time and help the company with marketing and sales and distribution and get off the ground, that would be fantastic. That would save me, again, several years of heartache, and can get something going faster, and then you have something to build on. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not, but I think definitely it is something that I would consider seriously.
And like you said, there's now platforms like Micro Acquire, which makes that a lot easier than it was before. And maybe when you first started, because it was like back in 2009, right? Those platforms didn't necessarily exist for you to be able to find people easily, right? So now I guess it's a different game where if you wanted to find a company to acquire, you just be searching. You can have, there's lots of these people on Twitter, like Andrew is the guy behind Micro Acquire. I really appreciate what he's done because, especially with people building bootstrap businesses as well, right? Because then they can build a business to a decent level knowing that they've got potential exit. Whereas if you need to build it all the way, for a lot of people, they might not have the cash flow to keep pumping money in until they get to revenue. But you can build a product which somebody else could then take, who does have the money and does have the capital, and they can go a lot further with it. And I think it's all about understanding, like you said, about where you are in your journey and what's best for you, because some people are obviously time rich and some people are time poor. But if you're time poor and you've got the capital, then why not speed it up?
That's right. That's right. And also, I think the other part of it also is that if you're an entrepreneur that you put in a lot of time and you're like, and I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs like that, obviously, that like, okay, we seem to be at the end of this, like, it's not really picking up the way we wanted. And what do we do next? And they're ready to fold. I would say before folding, consider putting your startup on microacquire, even if it's pre-revenue. It might be valuable to someone, and you might be able to get something out of it.
And it's interesting now as well, like I said, because these options are available, which like a year ago I didn't know about these things, right? So it's just great to see all these new options coming in, and it's hopefully very educational people listening to see this is what's possible as well. And like looking at like Wishpond now, right? What is your plan for the future? Like I said, you're probably going to hold back on the acquisitions for a little while now, but what's the vision there? What are you building?
Well, what we're building, high level of it, is that basically you look at large companies and you talk to their CMOs and say, how do you market yourself? And they say we use like these 7 or 8 different marketing tools for different purposes, and then we have our marketing professionals, and we use agencies and all of that. And where I see the gap, and that's the one that Wishpond goes after, is that small businesses, when you ask them, because they're so busy running their own business and they're not marketing professionals and they don't have a lot of financial resources, a lot of times they're searching for silver bullets, and there is none, right? There's only 1,000 lead bullets. I think I read that in the book, Hard Thing About Hard Things. And that really stuck with me. There's no silver bullets. There are only 1,000 lead bullets. The same with marketing. So, well, in that case, if you need to use several different marketing tools and tactics, and they need to feed into each other, that's where Wishpond comes in. That is all in one. It gives you all the tools that you need. But not only that, because we are marketing professionals, in the onboarding stage, in the first month, we actually set everything up for you. We use our copywriters, our designers, our marketing specialists, so that when we hand off the machinery to you for attracting, nurturing, getting referrals, managing your leads, sending outbound campaigns, all of that is set up for you, and you have best chance of success. And that's something that I really think fundamentally can democratize online marketing. And I think the next stage, a lot of it will go back to AI automation as well. A lot of things that in the past you needed to use, have a copywriter and have an ad specialist and have, all of these resources, to write your newsletter and so forth. Now AI can do that for you, and integrating that into the platform. Like we rolled out an AI-powered website builder that within 20 seconds it builds your website, all the text, all the images, everything is done with AI. Those are the things that I think in the future are going to make a huge impact as well.
What are you most excited about yourself, like on a personal level, looking at the future of the business?
I think what I'm most excited about is the potential that we have here to help entrepreneurs be more successful in the area of marketing and sales. Because honestly, similar to the M&A conversation we just had today, a lot of times people have really good products and services, But when it comes to marketing themselves and getting the word out, that's where a lot of people struggle, and makes sense that they struggle because they're competing with the best funded, most knowledgeable, skilled marketers, and that makes me excited to be able to give them a fighting chance and give them everything they need to succeed and make it affordable for them. That is very exciting to me. The other one that I definitely geek out about is anything AI. After hours and late nights, I'm always tinkering with things related to AI to see how they can apply to our business and our clients' businesses.
You've given some great advice today about acquisitions. If people listening right now, maybe they could help you with something. What would that be? What do you need help with?
What do I need help with? Well, we always, we're always looking for good M&A opportunities. So, if there are marketing and sales platforms, point solutions, yeah, we're always interested in hearing about that. Other than that, really, I think ultimately we just want to see entrepreneurs succeed. Nothing more than that.
Thanks so much for coming on today, Ali. Where can people find out more about you, find out more about Wishpond?
You can learn about Wishpond on wishpond.com. If you want to check out our AI website builder, you can go to wishpond.com/AI. Our all-in-one product that we rolled out is called Propel IQ. You can go to propeliq.com or wishpond.com/propeliq to find out more or receive a demo.
Perfect. So thanks so much for coming on. Any final words to the audience?
No, I really appreciate being here. Thank you. I really enjoyed this conversation.